Welcome, everyone. It is fantastic to see you here today. Hello, Delia. Hello, Hannah, Lee, Deborah, Barb. It is wonderful to see you all. Oh, and I see we have a raid from Denim to Diamonds. Sue, thank you so much, and welcome to you all. I am so excited to see you. I hope everyone is having a fantastic summer. We're right at the tail end. And with it being Labor Day long weekend and some changes in tariff, however you would prefer to say the word, rules, there's no better time than to talk about those now because they're going to impact all of us and how we spend our hard-earned money that we labor for. Hello, Debbie, Maria, Catherine, Jackie, Deborah. Great to see you all. And Marlene. Now, today's talk is not going to be political. It's going to be practical. As collectors and sellers, whether we're hobbyists or perhaps dealers that make our living this way, there's some important changes that we need to be aware of. So my goal today is to share some tips with you that are going to be practical and useful and things that you're going to be able to use as you make your decisions as to where you're going to be buying things. Now, we are going to have a special theming in today's brunch. You may notice it as we go along, and it is teasing our next talk. You're going to figure out what the theme is pretty quickly, but let's take a look. Now, here is our friend, the customs man. We're going to talk a lot about our new rules today and what they mean for collectors, buyers, sellers, everyone. And we will also talk about some of the risks based on different decisions that you may make to try and skirt around some of these rules are. At the end, the goal is to know how to ship and shop smarter. We will be doing an extra special mug giveaway, so please type #win in, and this is the mug that you will have a chance to win. This is a special mug, and it is in line with the nod to our special event that is going to be coming up. Now, first thing, we need to acknowledge exactly what tariffs and duties are. Tariffs are taxes on imports. They are set by trade policy, and they are often tied to the country of origin. Duties, well, import taxes are applied at entry, and these are called duties, and they're based on the type or category of goods. In the most simplest language, tariffs set the rules, and duties are the bill. Relatively straightforward. Now we're going to jump in and talk about some tariff changes. Here again, you'll notice our imagery is going to allude to our special event, but we have a wonderful postal serviceman who's taking a package to a house. And what we need to talk about is these changes as of August 29th. This is the end of the de minimis exemption that was in place. And what does this mean for all of us? Well, as of August 29th, 2025, the $800 duty-free threshold for US buyers no longer applies. And that means any shipment of any value can now be subject to these tariffs unless there's another specific HTS US exemption that applies. And these are going to be our new tariffs. Now, if we take a look at the tariff rates, this is the latest and only for some countries, and these are base tariff rates as of August 29th, 2025. We've got Australia, United Kingdom, and the European Union at 10%, Japan and Norway at 15%, China at 30% with a 90-day extension, and this is about to go up by another roughly 24%. We have South Africa at 30%. The different African nations vary between 11% and 47%, so it can go quite high. We've got Canada at 35%, Switzerland at 39%, and India that is now at 50%. Now, what does the end of this mean? Well, as of the 29th, there will be new fees, but we do need to talk about some very specific details. The HTS US 9706 code means that antiques that are properly classified and over 100-year-old with proper documentation of proof of age will be exempt. We also have gifts under $100, and there's a separate rule for them if they're coming between individuals, so one individual to another, and limits will be enforced of $100. They are also exempt. Now, be careful. Frequent gifts will be monitored. So if you're a business and you're sending a lot of gifts out, you need to be careful about that. And then finally, there is another rule with repatriated items under the HSTUS 9801 code. American goods returning home are also exempt. So this could mean good news for some of the purchases that you may have your eyes on. And we're going to dive into this in a little bit more detail. But what is subject to tariffs, you may be asking? Well, anything that's not covered by those three special rules will be assessed either a standard ad valorem tariff, and that is going to be a percentage, or a temporary flat fee. And we are going to show you what that looks like in just a moment. First, though, let's talk about what the buying journey looks like. So as we all know, when we love to travel, especially in the summer, we may hit up different antique and vintage markets, catch our eyes on all sorts of beautiful treasures. We can pick up some there. We may also be buying online. Now, it's a thrill to do this hunting. And if you're traveling, you need to be aware that anything that you pick up will be subject to duties as you return home. Many travelers choose to wear their treasures, and this image kind of is going to start to capture some of that concern. Can you get away with not declaring your items? We'll talk about that. Now, the online global marketplace is a place that we all tend to frequent. You are here with me now from all over the world. I'm based in Canada. Many of our viewers are based in the USA, and many are also based in all sorts of spots, countries across the world. We love to see you. And what is important to know is that we can stay connected, but there's going to be some important implications. Treasures may just be a click away, whether you're bidding at an auction or browsing in online shops, but you will need to rely on some research and really an understanding of what the duties, customs are going to be as you make that purchase. Just like you use all of your knowledge to research hallmarks and the values of the pieces that you're looking at and find references, you're going to also have to think about how tariffs are going to apply here as well. Once purchased, jewelry has to make its way across the border. Different carriers handle tariffs differently. And in the past week, there's been over 25 national postal services that have paused shipments to the USA while they determine how they're going to address these tariffs. Many are opting to require that fees be paid upfront. They call it DDP, or delivery duty paid. And that means that when the package is going to be shipped and dropped off, it needs to be paid upfront. Not all carriers are equipped to do this right now. So there's been quite a few countries that have chosen to pause shipments altogether. Royal Mail and Canada Post were part of those groups, but both have since managed to get their DDP process in place and shipments have resumed, which is very exciting. USPS has the ability as well to support with temporary flat rate tariffs, and these are for packages that are not using DDP. What does that look like? Well, for any of the postal systems that are using DDP, you're going to be paying the actual tariff rates. For any countries that are not able to do this, if they're still shipping, there's a flat rate per item that is determined by country. If your tariff rate by country is less than 16%, the flat rate will be $80. Tariff rate between 16 and 25, it'll be $160. And tariff rate between, greater than 26% is going to be $200. This is a special sort of application that has been allowed, and it can only be charged for the first 6 months. And this is really to allow everyone to catch up and make sure they've got the right technology in place so that they can charge the correct tariff rates. Here's a quick screenshot to show you what it looks like on Canada Post now. If you as a seller or even as just an individual who's trying to ship something across the border, you're going to need to use their Zonos solution in order to essentially pay the duty upfront. And there's two options. You can either set up an account where it's automatically going to be billed to you, or you can manually choose to pay the duties. But any way you look at it, when you're processing your package, through the Canada Post solution, you won't be able to proceed until you've entered the details on your approved proof of DDP being paid. My understanding is it's the exact same for the Royal Mail Service as well. Now, at customs, everything depends on how your package is declared and documented. Officers can inspect items, reference materials, and classify goods. Remember, custom agents are not appraisers, so any missing details can mean the difference between something that is duty-free or unexpected costs. This is my favorite image that I created, and it shows the shock and horror, and I personally experienced this when Canada was applying the 25% reciprocal tariff when a package arrived, and I know a few others that had this experience as well. We don't want you to find out firsthand about these tariffs when a package shows up and you have a bill that you have to pay. It can be a shock. And so this is why understanding the rules in advance is so important. And we're going to go through a few examples together today to understand exactly how they're applied and where the exemptions are. Let's talk about exemptions and relief. Now, the first one is antique exemptions. This is good news for collectors who love Victorian pieces, Edwardian pieces, soon Art Deco pieces, but we need to be very careful because when we say antiques, we are specifically referring to items that are over 100 years in age. If there's any gray line about the age of a piece, then it's going to be classified as regular jewelry and tariffs are going to be due. So the good news here is that 100 years and older, that is carefully documented with either hallmarks and a notation, appraisals, provenance, all of that needs to be included. If your seller and you can document the age, then you are going to be able to use a specific code that means that your antiques are going to be duty-free. If you can't document this, customs may reclassify it as modern jewelry and charge you the tariffs. So let's go through a couple of details. On the HCS US 9706 antiques of greater than 100 years, the scope is anything that is greater than 100 years. In this case, if you are a seller or a buyer, you want to make sure that this is the exact code that is being used. Either items over 250 years, and that's going to be 9706.1, or items over 100 years, 9706.9. You want to use antiques and not jewelry. And the importance there is if you put antiques and also jewelry, there is still going to be a 5.5% duty applied for jewelry. Now, you have to be careful, make sure the proof of age and authenticity are included. And following this video, I'm going to link you to a very helpful site that tells you the 9 specific elements that need to be included when you ship these packages. Let's do an example together. So here is an antique English locket. Let's say that we are a US buyer and we've paid $450 for this. It is marked for 1882. There's hallmarks on the back. And in this instance, let's say that it is shipping from the UK. We've got some beautiful clear hallmarks on this. It is from Birmingham, 1882. And as the seller who is shipping this, you'll definitely want to document all of this detail, perhaps even include a little printout inside the package in case it's inspected, in addition to reviewing the code that is going to be applied. Now, the right way to classify this is to use that code 9706, antiques over 100 years old. And this is going to ensure that it is treated as a duty-free item. The result would be 0 duty for you. But if this is classified incorrectly, so for example, if instead of antiques, the HES code 7113 for jewelry of precious metal was used, then there's going to be a cost for the jewelry duties in addition to the reciprocal tariff. And that's going to result in closer to $70 in fees, and that doesn't include the costs that are assessed by the carriers. So this is really what the government's collecting, and then the carriers are going to be collecting something over and above that. So this is where it's really important that we do our diligence, whether we're sellers or whether we're buyers, to, during this time of transition, talk to our sellers or talk to our buyers and make sure that we're classifying things correctly. We also can't fudge these things. So it'll be very important to have clear identification or even include an appraisal if you can from a certified appraiser or one of the many groups that are out there like NAJA or the ISA. We'll go through that in more detail. Now, the next exemption that comes up is American goods returned. This is all about having American items returned home. Imagine a Tiffany bracelet made in New York City, sold abroad. Well, it can return and re-enter duty-free under the American goods returned rule. Again, it's very, very important to have proof of this. I'm going to pause for a second because I see a question. Sue is asking, will they be opening these packages? Yes. Customs are able to open packages at any point in time. In Canada, we've had customs and duties applied for quite a long time, and it is not unusual to see that your package has been opened. They do label it very clearly if your package is open so that you know that this has happened. And what will happen is that they put a little enclosure saying that it's been inspected, and they tend to wrap it in plastic when they ship it back out. But they are able, it's well within their jurisdiction to open packages. And a caution, if you are sending something as an antique or some things as an antiques, and it is important that everything in that package be antique. If you're sending a selection of items, and many of us like to buy with open boxes, we may want to ask and pay for 2 shipping fees so that we can have the antique items separate from those that are not. Because if they're combined together based on what the legislation is and the latest reports are, the more expensive cost is going to be applied to everything. So that jewelry HST code would be applied, HTS code, excuse me. So very, very time consuming, very frustrating. All right. Let's go back to our American goods returned home. Now, here is the specific code for HTS US 9801. This is for items of US origin, duty-free to return anytime if not altered abroad. Now, if they're of foreign origin, and specifically, this is the USMCA application, it can return within 3 years unaltered. But that means that there can be no major changes to it. So if you had a bracelet that initially had amethysts in it, but you had the amethyst replaced with diamonds, this would not apply. Or if there was a major repair, so if you bought just a ring mount and you were sending it back with a diamond, again, this wouldn't apply either. Now, you must have proof of export and declarations for this. And again, I'm going to link you to a very helpful site that outlines exactly what has to be included. But let's walk through a practical example here too. This is a retro period American-made brooch. Let's say there is a US buyer who pays $500 for this beautiful gold brooch that is marked Carl Art, a wonderful maker from Providence, Rhode Island, and it is being shipped from Canada. In this case, let's go through how the duties should be applied. First, let's look at the markings. So this is where marked jewelry is going to come in really, really handy, because in the absence of having marks that you're able to point to and indicate to, it will be difficult to be able to prove dates, and it will also be difficult to be able to prove who the makers are. In this case, we have Carl Art's mark clearly on the brooch. And if we take a look at one of my favorite sites, the Antique Jewelry University from Lang Antiques, we've got a clear indicator. You may want to include a printout as the seller of this item, or you may want to include a printout or of a photocopy from the Hallmark Institute's guide, but you definitely want to include something to prove that Carl Art is an American maker. And this is not an antique piece. So if we were not saying that it was American made and return goods returning home, we would be paying a lot more money. So let's review. The correct classification is going to be the HTS code 9801, American goods returned. And this should treat it as duty-free. If it was to be classified incorrectly, this is where it can be very expensive. The code 7113, which is jewelry and precious metals, is going to have a duty treatment of 5.5% for the base duty for jewelry. And if there's no proof that this was essentially American materials, American made, and therefore under that NAFTA agreement of USMCA, then there would be a total cost for duties of $202.50, and then additional fees from the carrier as well. So you can see that there's a huge additional cost that could be associated to this if it's not classified correctly. So again, it's in all of our interests to make sure that things are classified correctly. Now, with the de minimis exemption gone, gifts under $100 can still enter duty-free if they're shipped from person to person for casual exchange. This can be a saving grace, but it needs to be declared properly as well. So here are the details. The gift definition: it has to truly be a gift, marked at less or equal to $100. Virgin Islands and other territories can be $200. And you can consolidate shipments if the items are individually wrapped, addressed, and documented as well. So let's say I was sending gifts to a schoolhouse in the USA with 15 students, all under $100. If everything's documented correctly, it can be consolidated. Of course, there are exclusions: no alcohol, tobacco, or quota items, and the exemption is only up to the threshold value. So let's say you wanted to send a gift of $150. In that case, the first $100 would be exempt, but the second part of the $50 would have duties applied. So that is something very important to understand about duties for gifts. Speaking of gifts, please type #win for a chance to win this beautiful mug. You may notice a little bit of a retro theming with our imagery, and that is because we're going to be doing a special on retro jewelry at the end of September. And you can win this mug today. Now, good news for everyone: you will not incur duties if this mug is shipped to you. If it is shipped to the US, it will be printed within the US and it's domestic, nothing to worry about. And everyone else will make sure that it is covered. Generally, these mugs are printed in the country in which the recipient lives. So don't worry, you will be taken care of. You can enter by typing WIN, #WIN in all caps, and not worry about incurring any duties with this. I'm going to hide this banner, but please help encourage each other to enter for a chance to win. Now, let's continue. There are some risks and worst case scenarios that we need to chat about together. Let's take a look. Let's say that you are a brave shopper who's decided that you're going to go shopping abroad and simply attempt to wear everything on your way home. Well, if you don't declare things and you happen to be pulled over by our friends at customs, you potentially risk having all of your items reviewed, and the items could actually be seized and confiscated. In addition, you could also potentially have your passport revoked or essentially be made ineligible to cross the border. So that is a huge risk. I have heard many people say that they're going to try and do that. I can't advise you whether it is a good idea, a bad idea, or whether I have done this myself. I see that Jane used to do this. I'm sure many of us who live close to the border have many memories of crossing, perhaps as children, and having their parents buy them a whole new outfit and leave an outfit in the bathroom garbage somewhere. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Totally back in the 80s, Jane. But there are some real risks associated to this. And if you are a business owner as well, and I'll just switch so I can see you for a moment. If you're a business owner, the risks are even greater than for that of the individual. So if the individual can't travel anymore, as a business owner, this may bring your business into question with other government agencies like the IRS agency. And this is not something that you want. So be very, very cautious. Probably not a good idea to go about things in this way. Now, let's take a look. I know that you're all here for education. So we're going to go through a couple of examples together. And I will share a link so that you can go and continue to read on details, because these tariffs are changing. Things are evolving almost on a daily basis, it feels like, which can be a little bit confusing and a lot of bit frustrating for everyone. There's going to be some very real risks for business if your customers are located in a different country. And the answer is you're really going to want to focus on where you can, bringing a greater domestic presence so that you can safeguard your business. And if that's something you want to talk about, I am happy to help you sort of dig in and understand how you can change who the customers are that you're reaching. But we're going to take a look at a few examples now. Make sure you type that #win. So our first example, and I'd love you to comment what you think this beautiful metal is going to qualify for. This is a sterling silver medal. It is made by John Wanamaker, New York, and it is marked for 1929. So here's our scenario. Imagine that this buyer is located in the US, they're purchasing this, but they are purchasing it from abroad. Well, let's think about the 1929, and let's think about this John Wanamaker New York mark that is listed. Please put in the chat whether you think that this will be exempt from duties or if duties will have to be paid. I see Jane has made her comment, HCS 9801. Please, I'd love to see for the rest of you, what do you think is going to happen? And then I'm going to walk you through both options, whether it is marked correctly for export or not. So we've got one vote for exempt so far. And let's see what the rest of you think. Mickey Woo says duties. I'll allow this to catch up. I know sometimes we're on a lag. We've got Divine Vintage and Antiques that's saying exempt. Deborah Barnes saying no duty. Barb saying exempt, return to US. Delia saying exempt. Deborah saying exempt. All right, you have all been studying. So first, let's go through the incorrect scenario, or worst case scenario. If this item, an American silver and diamond medal, was marked as jewelry precious metal, and we'll say it's a $300 item, the duty treatment would be for the 5.5% and the reciprocal tariff. If it was shipped from the UK, you'd be looking at almost $80 in duties plus fees. And if it was shipped from Canada, then you would be doing $121.50 in duty and fees as well. But this is not the correct way to mark the item. Those of you that said use that 9801 jewelry, sorry, it shouldn't say jewelry metal, it should be US items that are being returned, you are correct. There should be $0 due on this. So it's very, very important that they be correctly marked. We're going to go through one additional example. So this is a pair of diamond earrings. Whoop, and I've already shown you the answer, but I'll flip back. So this earring is unmarked. There are no details on it whatsoever. It's white gold and there are diamonds in it, and we'll call it 0.8 carats total of diamond between the two. But it is unmarked. So how is this going to be marked? Well, the answer is, unfortunately, that duties are going to be due. And depending on where this item comes from, if you live in the US and you're buying jewelry that is not marked and isn't easily recognizable by an appraiser as being a true antique piece, then you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're choosing a seller that is in the US. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. The HTS code of 7113, jewelry of precious metal, would be used. The value on this, we're calling it $1,000. And so if it's domestic, that would be your best way of buying something like this. If it's not marked and has no appraisal or no details, it would be $0. But if you're purchasing this and importing it from the UK, you would be looking at $255 in duty and fees. And in Canada, you would be looking at even more because of the higher reciprocal rates. So $405 in duty and fees. Yikes. This is one that can be a real heartbreaker. Jane, you are exactly right. If it is unmarked and unidentifiable, then duty is owing. Now, One thing I will say, if you are buying fine jewelry, especially during this transition period, it is in your best interest to talk to the seller to see if perhaps there is an appraisal that is already associated to the item, or if they can help you by getting it appraised. Usually you can get an appraisal for around $100. And in that case, if you can, and it's going to save you a lot of money, it would be very, very worthwhile. Worth exploring, worth thinking through. For smaller purchases, this may matter less, but that is an idea for you. I see Ellen Gordon is asking a question for the metal. You thought it had to be returned within 3 years. So it only has to be returned within 3 years if it is not US made. So this is where if under the USMCA agreement, it was potentially made in Canada, but using US materials, etc., and it was part of the free trade agreement, then there's 3 years in which it can move back and forth. But for an item like this that is marked, then you do have no time limit. You're okay. Again, it's very difficult for pieces that are unmarked to have documentation. So this is where you need to know who the manufacturer is, where it was manufactured, where the materials came from as well. It can be quite complicated. All right. I am going to take a look to see how many entries we have for our giveaway. We have 27 so far, so let's add our banner across the bottom. Here we go. Please type WIN, capital W-I-N. And in the meantime, I'm going to share with you a site that I really love. I find it incredibly helpful. They've been breaking down the details on tariffs, what duties are going to be owed, really focusing primarily on Canada and the US, but they do have some other details in there for other countries as well. And let me share my screen. It is from the website, The Vintage Seeker, and I will share my screen, share screen. Here we are. So they have a guide they call the Ultimate Guide to Tariffs in Vintage and Secondhand, what buyers and sellers need to know. And I'm going to be putting up a post today that links directly to this article so that you can see all of the details. This is an article they've been working on for a few months now, and it has been refreshed as of August 29th, 2025, and it is lengthy. But they also have it broken down into general questions, which will allow you to click through and find different specific answers that you may be looking for. So stay tuned. We will make sure that you get access to this. And I am not sharing my screen because I lost connection. Let's try that again. Oh no. Let me know in the comments if you can still hear me. Okay, you can still hear me. Well, that is a very good sign. My camera, for whatever reason, does not want to come on, but let's try. Now at least you can see the ultimate guide to tariffs in vintage and secondhand. Now, from here, I will be posting this to make sure that you all have access to it. Hopefully you're able to see this now. I'm just going to keep an eye on the comments because if you can, we're still going to be able to do the giveaway. And I'm going to read these comments in the meantime. Ray, I agree. The increasing taxes is a sign of failing economies, and it is definitely going to be impacting different businesses for sure. And there are impacts for the jewelry manufacturing community as well. In India, with the tariffs now at 50%, there are full communities of makers and gem dealers that have had to essentially close shop. So it is a very difficult position for different folks to be in, no matter who you are. Awesome. I'm glad that you can still hear me. Okay, so the good news is if you can hear me, then hopefully we are also going to be able to share my screen so that I can do the giveaway. So let's share another screen now. let's share this one. Nope. Okay. We are going to share screen, and go to our giveaway. Here we are. Okay. Well, the good news is that you can see the win screen and my avatar. And I'm going to have to check into why this computer's decided to misbehave. But for now, we have 29 entries. We are going to count down from 10, and then I'm going to hit draw. And we are going to give away one of our retro mugs. Let's do it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and draw. Good luck, everyone. Here we go. Our winner is Deborah Barnes. Congratulations. All right. So Deborah, please send me an email to sundaebaubles@gmail.com, and I am going to stop the banner. There we go. And in the comments, I will put my email to make it easy, sundaebaubles@gmail.com, and I will get this shipped to you as soon as possible. Again, duty-free. And we will be doing our next event at the end of September. I will be sharing the details very, very soon, and we will do a full deep dive on retro jewelry. You may have noticed the retro imagery that I used, kind of a 1940s style for most of this presentation. I was having a bit of fun with it, but we're going to go through American retro jewelry, Canadian retro jewelry, as well as European, French, and English retro jewelry. We'll be looking at the difference between them, why some of the styles are a little bit different, and why certain metals and gemstones were prevalent during that period. So I am looking forward to seeing you all again very soon. I will be posting the event page for our retro program on Monday, Labor Day. And until then, I hope you all have a fantastic Labor Day long weekend. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to say my project is done, so I'm going to be able to be a lot more active here with you all. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun. And I'll be putting up a poll very soon too to ask you how you'd like me to sequence some of the topics that I've been working on behind the scenes. Great to see you all. Thank you, Ray, Marlene, Jane, Deborah, Sue, Mickey, Divine Vintage. It's been great to see you all. I really, really appreciate it. Any questions, as always, reach out. Michelle's Jewelry, lovely to see you. Dee Dee, Michelle, Hannah, I hope I haven't missed anyone. Doug, it is a real pleasure. Ellen, enjoy your day. We'll see you all soon. Take care.